Are you a manager who is eager to change the trajectory of your career? I have spent the last 23 years as a Fortune 50 leader learning from other industry leaders how to break free from limiting beliefs and habits. On the Might in Motion podcast, we focus on the 4 M's: motivation, momentum, mindfulness, and might. We bring you leaders from Fortune companies, doctors, and entrepreneurs. Their stories of living their own might in motion will inspire you to create your own action plan and achieve your goals. Welcome to Might in Motion. Today's episode of Might in Motion is brought to you by Pantheon FM, Fortunes Magnified. Pantheon FM is changing the world through entrepreneurship. In this community, you will find everything you need to create, amplify, and monetize your world-changing business. Join us at pantheon.community/register/LAUA. A car accident in 2018 left Jen Drummond awestruck and emboldened. Rescue workers couldn't imagine any scenario where she came out of it alive, but she did. That's when she realized you don't get to choose when you leave this life, but you sure can choose how you live it. Strengthened by this awareness, she set out to live in a more authentic and adventurous way. Inspired to climb a mountain for her birthday, her son raised the stakes by suggesting Mount Everest. Not one to back down from a challenge, she accepted the pursuit. During her training, her coach upped the ante and proposed that she go for a Guinness World Record and become the first woman to climb the 7-second summits. The pursuit matched her desire to live a life of significance, not just success. Jen, I am so stoked to talk to you today because you have this amazing story of overcoming, adapting, overcoming, achieving everything. And I just can't wait to share that with our audience. So welcome to Might in Motion.
Woohoo! Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Tell us more about what happened and then how that transpired for you to go and climb, because you've got more climbing ahead of you from our conversation in the green room.
Yes. So here's what was going on. I had a business. I still own the business. I hired myself out of a job so that I could be this stay-at-home mom, because for some reason, that's the message I heard my entire life. Like, that was the dream position to be. And then I was a stay-at-home mom. I loved it. And then everybody went to school. I didn't know how to get out of that job, right? I'm like, well, what happens if somebody needs me during the hours that they're at school and they forget something? Like, I just need to be ready and be that mom. And 2018, I got into a horrific car crash where no one knows how I survived. They rebuilt the accident, could not rebuild a scenario that I walked away. And that accident happened. And then 3 weeks after that accident, a girlfriend of mine went running on a trail. It was wet. She slipped, she hit her head and never came home. And so I had to metabolize these two extreme events at the same time that just make no sense whatsoever. And I realized I don't get to choose when I die, but I sure get to choose how I live. And in fact, the days that I'm living right now are the choices I'm making. And all of a sudden, I was like less concerned about what society or other people thought, if I was a good mom or there or whatever. And I was more concerned about running out of time. What happens if my time's up next year and I don't get to try pasta in Italy? And I don't get to see what the ocean looks like in the Caribbean, right? Like all of a sudden, you look at this world as this huge playground, and I'm afraid of running out of time. And I'm like, you guys can like forget lunch for a day if you forget it. And I'm going to go check some of this stuff out while I'm still here. And so 2019 became this big year of, who is Jen Drummond? Why was I saved? And how do I make the most out of my time left? And getting into who is Jen Drummond, I mean, I literally, if you asked me like what I wanted for dinner, I wouldn't be able to tell you, because I just ate leftovers on the kids' plates. If you would have asked me what my favorite color was, I don't even know if I really knew. Like, I went and bought a packet of pens and started journaling with pen colors. I'm like, I don't like red. I feel like I'm correcting myself. I don't like yellow. I can't see what I wrote. I don't like, right? Like you start just getting curious about yourself again and be like, okay, I like purple. Purple's like happy and playful, but I can still see it on the paper and it gets me excited to write more. I'm writing in purple, whatever, like just goofy things about us. And then 2020 was coming and I was turning 40. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, what's on my list that is going to be something really cool to do to launch off my next decade that will be harder to do as I get older? And climb a mountain stood out, right? I'm like, oh, I'm going to climb a mountain. It's going to be easier to climb one in my 40s than my 50s. So here we go. And so I asked friends in mountaineering, if you could climb one mountain in the whole world, like just one, what one would you climb? And the general consensus back was this mountain named Ama de Blanc. It's the Paramount Pictures logo mountain. So if you've seen a Paramount Pictures movie and you see the stars circling that mountain, that's it. I'm like, oh, perfect. And it meant the mother's necklace. I'm like, oh, even better. I'll climb Ama de Blanc. And then if we remember back to the beginning of 2020, around March, the world shut down, schools closed because COVID came, and I became a homeschool teacher to my 7 beautiful humans. And one day, one of them was struggling with his homework. And I'm like, listen, buddy, we do hard things, giving him that parent pep talk that we do. And my son goes to me, if we do hard things, why are you climbing a mountain called I'm a Dumb Blonde instead of a real mountain like Mount Everest? Honey, it's Ama de Blanc, not I'm a Dumb Blonde. But thank you. Finish your homework. We'll look at Everest. So he did, we did, he went to bed. I know, my damn children, I tell you. And it's just like, you can't even make this stuff up, right? So he goes to bed and I'm looking at Everest and I'm like, you know what? If he thinks Everest is the hardest mountain in the whole world to climb, I'm climbing it. And I'm going to show him whatever our metaphorical mountain is, whatever Everest is, we can climb it. We can summit. It's up to us. So I hire a coach to train me for Everest. And the coach gives me a book about becoming an uphill athlete. And in the front of the book, there's a lady who gets a Guinness World Record for doing something in the Alps. And I just remember saying to my coach, my kids learned how to read on Guinness World Records. If I had a world record, I'd actually be a cool mom, because homeschooling, I'm not cool. There's 0 things about me right now that are working in my favor. And it was kind of like just me venting, right? Like my kids hate me. I'm home with them 24/7 and can't do anything or go anywhere. And this is awesome. And so my coach is like, oh, I'll think of something. I said, okay, fine. But I'm not, Guinness World Records is weird. I'm not growing fingernails or pumpkins or speed eating hot dogs or weird things you see in there. And he came back a few weeks later. He's like, I think you should climb the 7-second summits. I'm like, that sounds like a tongue twister. What are you talking about? And he goes, listen, Jen, he goes, the 7-second summits are the second highest mountain on each of the 7 continents. It's harder than the first 7. Only 1 male has done it. You'd be the first female. 7 continents, 7 mountains, 7 children. Sounds like a jackpot. Me being in the vulnerable state of I'm alive, I'll do anything exciting, was like, let's try it. I'd never slept in a tent before, hadn't really ever climbed a mountain either, but like, let's take on this pursuit that's been done by 1 male. And I did, right? Like, and here we are.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I love the 7s. That, that's just, yeah. I mean, that just is so amazing. And I think what's interesting too is, people have these near-death experiences, right? Or I'm married to a former Marine, know a lot of guys who went through a lot of stuff, right? Some people lean into that like you have, where you're just like, well, I'm just going to go live my life to the fullest. And then others spend like so much time questioning, why am I here, but she isn't? Why am I here, but they're not? What do you think is the difference between like why one person has that mindset of like, let me just go, I have a purpose, I need to live my life to the fullest, versus just being stuck?
Man, I think it's a choice. And I know that's hard to hear when you're the person that's stuck, because here's the deal. I got in this horrific car crash. Like my car looked like a tin can that got ran over. And I got home and I knew they were going to total my car. The insurance company's like, we can't tell you it's going to be totaled till we see it. I'm like, I promise you, there's nothing you can use, but okay. So I didn't have a car. So I went down to the dealership in an Uber. And I'm like, and the cops are like, you need to buy this car again forever because this is the only reason why you're alive. Anything else, there's no way. We don't even know how you're here. So I go to the dealership. As the universe would have it, some guy built his wife a car. She didn't like one thing on it, so she didn't want it. So it was like, and I was in the process of actually waiting for a car to come in. That was the first car that I designed, right? Like normally I'm like, whatever's on the lot, I'll take it. And I was crushed because they're like, hey, it's not going to be ready for like another 9 months. I'm like, okay, well, I can't wait 9 months now because my car's gone. So it was like one thing off from the car that I designed. I'm like, I will take it. They're like, okay, perfect. So we sign all the papers, we do all the things, whatever. They give me the keys. I go to get in the car. I was like, oh, I now need to drive this thing. I haven't driven since I got in this accident. So I was in the parking lot of the dealership, sweating, like I'm like, okay, we do hard things pep talk. I'm giving it to myself. I'm like turning on my favorite music. I even went on like YouTube. You know how you have those like inspirational videos? So I'm like blasting the inspirational video on the radio and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, okay. And then I'd be like, no, I'm not going yet. Right. And for 45 minutes, I'm having this negotiation in my head of what's going to happen. And then finally I realized if I don't go, it's only going to get harder, right? The story's only going to get deeper and whatever. And so I'm just going to have to go. And so I went. I probably lost 10 pounds in the 30-minute drive on the way home from like sweating and panicking. And I literally like the entire time, like my fingers are grinding the steering wheel. And anytime I got next to a semi truck, like my heart had to be swallowed. So it went back into my chest and got out of my throat. And I went in the farthest lane possible over. And I just remember being like, drive safe. I am driving safe. And that's like what I sang to myself, like for the entire ride home, because I didn't want another thought to branch onto my head. So I crowded it out by like, like drive safe. I'm driving myself safely home. And like I sang that like the whole way, like I'm such a nerd, but whatever. I got home and I'm like, okay, this is only going to get easier. That's going to be the hardest part. And for 6 months, okay, I could drive in town fine. When I got on the highway, if I passed a semi truck, my heart like just it moved. And then I had to swallow it to put it back in place. And after I just remember one day all of a sudden driving to pick up my mom from the airport. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I wasn't freaked out. I didn't like have sore hands from getting there and clenching the steering wheel. Like this worked. But it was 6 months. It wasn't a one-time decision, right? Like I think sometimes we're like, okay, we're gonna make this one-time decision and then we're good. No, you have to make that decision 1,000 times, like 10,000 times. And then eventually it gets okay. And then eventually you're like, you will all of a sudden realize I did it. We're good. We're back to normal.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. I love the singing in your mind, right? Because it's complete. It's forcing you to have that positivity and the light, right? Like it's bringing like more of that light and joy into the moment to distract you. Now, were you a climber or a hiker before? I mean, you said you never had camped. So would you already have a little bit of a skill set, or was this completely out of your comfort zone?
Well, it's funny, right? Like, did I have a skill set? Yeah, I came into the sport pretty prepared, but not because I was doing mountaineering. If you looked at my athletic history, as a child, I was a gymnast. So I do feel like gymnastics just gives you such strength and body awareness that you carry into every sport from there on out. In college, I played soccer. So I had that like fast twitch, slow twitch, endurance type muscles. After college for a little bit, I got into triathlon. So I knew that like sufferfest type B fun. And so when it came time to go into mountaineering, I was like, oh, okay, I have the muscles, I have the body awareness. Now I just have to apply it to this sport. So I mean, the coaches laughed. He's like, well, you really couldn't have had a better pedigree to get to this thing than Ed. You've been a climber or whatever. But so it allowed me to get into the sport very quickly, very easily. I live in Park City. So for me, climbing mountains is in my backyard. So that made it easy. And yeah, so it was advantageous, but it wasn't like I was doing it before.
Yeah. Yeah. But you were able to take the skill sets that you had, modify them, and put them together into the toolkit that you needed to go and achieve this goal.
Yeah.
And see, I love that, because a lot of times, coming from a corporate space, people think I have to have everything on that list to go after that job. No,
Right.
you don't. You have to have the ability to go and unpack the specific skills that you have and show how, when you bring those to the table, that's going to elevate you. Right.
Right.
And so
Right.
it's just a similar kind of thought process. A lot of times, we kind of touched on this a little bit in the green room as well, is a lot of times we don't set our own boundaries. We don't know that we should say no, and that no is actually a superpower. Right. And you talk about this a lot in LinkedIn and social media. Tell us a little bit more about what that power of no is for you.
No allows you to say yes to things that you want. Right. And I think a lot of times we view, I don't know, it's like there's just such a limited time. And so you have to start prioritizing how you want to spend your time, who you want to be, what do you want to experience. And that's the beauty of having a solid goal like climbing Everest. I had to say no to a lot of things to be able to climb Mount Everest. My girlfriends would go for coffee and I'm like, man, I wish I could join you. They knew that if they wanted me to come along, they were coming along with me hiking. Bring the coffee, we're going for a hike, right? Like that's how it's going to look right now. And it worked, right? But it was a no to a lot of things. So I could say yes to that one big thing. And I think it really helps for us to get clear on, for me, I'm a mom, I'm a business owner, and then I'm an athlete. So when I'm bouncing decisions, I'm bouncing them off of those three categories. When I'm looking at my calendar and I'm reviewing it on a monthly basis, I'm looking at it and saying, am I a mom, then a business owner, then an athlete? Or does my calendar tell you I'm an athlete, then a business owner, then a mom? And you really start getting to discipline about putting everything in your calendar, right? So guess what? If I'm going to have kid time and it's from 4 to 6, I'll put kid time in there. I'm not putting clean the drawer out in the kitchen time on my calendar, because all of a sudden that looks like really stupid to put on my calendar, right? I'm like, oh, wow. At my stage of the game of where I've built this business and stuff, is that really based on the limited time that I have, which is my most valuable asset? I'm going to pay my kid $1 to go clean the junk drawer, and I'm going to read books or study with them or do something that's more valuable. But you have to be clear on who you are and what you want to do, so you know what to say no to, so you can know what you're saying yes to.
Yeah. Have you always been that way?
I got lucky when I got into my business and got into you do all hats all the time, right? And I had a business advisor that I hired early on, and they were like, you need to audit your calendar and start figuring out what your $20 an hour jobs are. And you have to get rid of those, because otherwise you're working for $20 an hour and your lifestyle that you want isn't going to be able to, you can't do that. Like, you're more expensive. And so then when you get used to doing those audits and saying like, oh, this is just me leveling up, this is me leveling up. Like, I'm not a mom that does laundry. And I'm okay with that, because my kids don't care if I folded it or if somebody else folded it. They just care that they have clean clothes to wear to school. And I think a lot of us get caught in activities that don't have the bang for the buck, right? Like so I'm very conscientious of, and sometimes you shift it. So before, like, it's not like I get it right every time. At one point I was looking at my calendar. I'm like, I spend endless hours in the car. I'm getting rid of that. And look how much time I'll free up. And I did that for like a couple weeks. And then I realized I missed all the conversations that you have in the car. And I'm like, you know what? On paper, that looks like a good thing to delegate. But in reality, that's like that time where your kid doesn't have distractions, that you get those intimate conversations. And so that's not a good thing to delegate. So I'm actually taking driving back over and I'm going to delegate this other piece out. And if we just like look at ourselves and be very mindful of how we're operating our weeks, our days, our lives, all of a sudden they become a lot easier to enjoy because we're filling them with things that bring us happiness.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. It is hard to do, but it is something that's so critically important. Like there are things that I do where this is like many, many years ago. I had an apartment that was for sale, right? And I was like, I don't have time to keep it clean. So I started hiring somebody to clean it so that it was always ready. It was always show ready, right? If somebody's going to go walk my apartment to buy it, right? And I never let go of that. It's like, you know what? That was the best investment I ever made, was to have somebody just to come and dust and like, just just make everything neat.
Well, and it's like a simple act of self-care, right? Like to have somebody like take care of you by doing that for you. If you can look at it like that, you're like, oh, now I feel like loved because someone took care of something for me instead of me being the person that's taking care of everything.
Yes. Yes. It's an amazing feeling when you can identify what those things are. I have a friend, we were talking and she goes, yeah, my husband and I did this test. We talked about what was most important, and we both realized that Christmas cards was not on our list of things that were most important. So why were we spending 2 to 3 weeks every year to design, to print, to address, to stamp, when she was like, neither one of us cared. So why are we doing it because other people care? And I'm like, this year, I'm like, that was so brilliant. I'm so glad I heard that statement 2 weekends ago, because now I don't feel pressure to go build a Christmas card. Right. Sorry to everybody who didn't get a Christmas card from me this year. Nobody got one. Like it's just
you're not left out. You didn't get cut off the list. It's just there is no list. So you want to see me, check out my socials or come visit. There you go.
Yes. I have a guest room. Come stay anytime, Yes. So I think I love how your thought process is around that, blocking out time and saying no to the things that are going to allow you to say yes to what's really, really important. I think that's amazing. When you feel stuck, what do you do to really try to push through that, besides singing to yourself that you can drive? Like, what are some things you do today that somebody can take with them and say, man, if I'm in a stuck position, I'm going to go channel my inner Jen Drummond to go and get pushed beyond?
Yeah. If I'm stuck, then I have this thing called the grump dump. Okay. And I'll allow myself to dump whatever I'm feeling or thinking or stuck on. And it's normally grumpy thoughts because somehow I like to recycle those more than happy thoughts. And I'll grump dump and I'll give myself a 5-minute timer. So I can go hard, loud, whatever, extreme for 5 minutes. And then after that 5 minutes, I'm not allowed to go 5 minutes again until another hour. So anytime like that thought comes up again, I'm like, oh, you know what? In 35 minutes, I can deal with this. But right now I'm here in 35. So then it just trains your body. And I'm not saying it's perfect. It's not like, oh, it doesn't ever show up until an hour later. But when it does show up, you're saying, hey, I understand this still needs to be resolved, but right now is not the time. And you're going to get time in 30 minutes. And so then it kind of like gives it permission to just not be like, oh, I'm not going to be seen and you're not going to address me. It's just, I'm going to address you, just not right now. And so I've done that where I've been in bad situations, right? Like I can throw a temper tantrum and maybe it takes me 8 hours of 5-minute sections to finally get it out. But guess what? Eventually you get sick of your own story. You're like, oh my God, I'm still saying the same thing, like on repeat, rewind, like wah, wah, wah. And so that allows you to do that. And it allows you to get it out of you. And it allows you to just like have it not consume you.
Yeah. It's channeled into one, like something that's, here's your time, but the rest of the time is mine.
Yeah.
Right. Is that something that you've taught your kids to leverage as well? As a mom, like I'm always looking for tricks and tips.
Yeah, no, totally. Aren't we all?
Yeah.
I mean, 100%. Like here's another trick that has been magical for us that I'll share. So we have this red light by our house and we're the short side, right? So it is red every time. And of course, I'm the human that pulls up to the red like, man, I can't believe we got it red, right? And I'm like grouchy that we hit it red. And finally, like one day I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm the only person that cares that this light's red. Like, let's be honest. The red light doesn't care that it's red. Only me throwing a fit like I'm two. And so finally, I'm like, you know what? This red light, I'm going to turn it into my gratitude light and flip the switch. Ooh. And so now every single time we hit a red light, my kids know, oh, it's gratitude time. And everybody has to start rattling off their gratitude list. And like, you'll look out the window and be like, I'm grateful that it's sunny, or I'm grateful for whatever. I'm grateful that so-and-so shared their snack at lunch. Now it comes sometimes where like life's going so fast that we'll randomly hit the light green and we'll be like, oh man, we hit the light green. I mean, welcome to the human experience, right? Like, damned if we do, damned if we don't.
Well, it also creates opportunity for you to learn something completely new about your kid's day, right?
Yeah,
Like, because now
totally.
they're going to share, they probably would have shared that their friend shared that snack with them. If you ask them
Right.
what happened during the day, they're going to say nothing, right?
Yeah,
But now you're getting
totally.
like this window into their worlds, and that's super special because
Yeah,
that's what they're going to
100.
remember. They're not going to remember, the grumpy red light. They're going to remember all these moments with mom,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's super special. So, all right. So if people are interested in learning more about you or getting you on their stage or your book that's coming out, what is some of the best ways for people to come? I know pre-buy the book, right? Is it comes out in January,
January.
February?
January. So the
January.
book comes out
Awesome.
January 9, but you can pre-order now and you get a bunch of fun freebies that are definitely worth it. And go to my website. So jendrummond.com. That will drive you to the book that you can get on Amazon. You can see all my social media handles so you can connect on your platform of choice. I have stuff about my speaking. We run some challenges here and there. Just fun. Like reach out because I love hearing where people have found me. I love hearing what you're up to, cheering you on, and all those great things.
Is there a social platform that you're spending more time on than others? I know I follow you religiously on LinkedIn, but is there one that you're
Yes.
like, man, if you really want to see, this is where you need to go?
Yeah. So if you're interested in like the visual mountainy type stuff, then probably LinkedIn or TikTok. But
Mhm.
my favorite platform is LinkedIn. I
Yeah,
like the
me
people
too.
there. I like the messages there. I like what I learned there. So I personally am on LinkedIn a little bit more, but we're on all the platforms because that's what you do these days.
Exactly. But I agree. LinkedIn has become like my new favorite spot. I think it's because people are there to really try to share and learn.
Yeah.
And it just seems more authentic. I don't know. So I love to write little notes. And so I want to recap some of the notes that I wrote, nuggets for me, and I think for the audience as well. So the first one was don't run out of time. And so when you had your accident, it became that motivation to say, hey, I got to figure myself out yet now, really get to know you so that you can go make the most of all the time that you have left. And that there's a choice. If somebody is facing a problem, you have a choice to move forward, right? So if you feel like you're really, really, really stuck, you've got to get yourself out of that. And you've got to crowd out those negative thoughts. Some of those things that you talked about with the negative thoughts, or the grump dump, that 5-minute timer to kind of get everything out of your system, wait an hour, reset your mind. If it's still there, you can vent for another 5. And eventually that 5 isn't needed anymore. And then the no piece was also really important to me. So saying no to things actually allows you to say yes to the things that you really want, and it opens up those opportunities in your life. And that you use times to block on your calendar, where you put literally everything on your calendar so you can see visually, hey, is this falling into my mom category, my business owner category, my athlete category? And if it's not in one of those 3 things, it shouldn't be on your calendar, right? So everybody has their own 3 things, but I love those things, definitely resonate with me. So thank you so much, Jen, for your time today. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into Might in Motion. If you learned something about motivation, momentum, mindfulness, or might, please like, comment, and share. Thank you.